Friday here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We're joined today by Jenna Harner of Channel 11 WPXI, and it's time to get you your final preview of this Browns game. Why it has to be the defense that's the difference maker with this week after the offense was the group last week. We'll get over all that here in all of our Week 14 picks here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show in your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first bet of $5 or more. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. As I said before, we're joined by the amazing Jenna Harner of Channel 11 WPXI. Jenna, it's always great to have you on the show, and it feels like a bit of deja vu. Although you didn't get to do the Browns game, I believe we did the last time because that was the Thursday night game, so we didn't get to preview this. But it does feel like we just talked about this stuff.
It really does. It's so funny because just the way the schedule shook out, and Mike Tomlin was talking earlier this week about, do you change anything when you play a team twice in such a close span? And he's like, not really, but it feels like we were just planning and prepping and researching and diving into the numbers about the Browns. It's like, oh, hey, they're back again. And so let's two games against the same opponent in 3 weeks is a very intriguing little wrinkle in the schedule, especially when you're doing so against a divisional opponent.
Absolutely. We'll also make a quick note just so it's not, there's no mystery here. We are recording this very early in the week. It's actually Tuesday. So this is a very early week because we have a crazy busy week with I have National Signing Day. Jenna has a lot of stuff. Volleyball is, Pitt's hosting the volleyball national tournament. I got Pitt basketball. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. But we wanted to get this done. So if there's things that have happened since this recording that makes something that we say don't make sense, that is why. But we wanted to get this done and still get you the show. But the bottom line is, regardless of today, tomorrow, the day after, or the day of the game, this Steelers defense has to be the group that turns things around this week. Last week, we said the offense had to step up, and they did. Step up, they did. They outscored the Bengals. They won the shootout. Now the defense has to get back to being the dominant unit that it's supposed to be. And the defense has been great this year. Again, they're one of the best units in the NFL. When you look at their production right now, I believe they're giving up the 7th fewest points in the NFL. No, 6th fewest, tied with the Buffalo Bills. They're getting the job done on a lot of fronts. And they've been doing so while facing injuries. Guys like Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, they've been out. They haven't had their full rotation of their edge rushers for all but maybe 1 or 2 games this season. But it looks like they've gotten Alex Highsmith back this week, so they should be back to full strength here. Cam Hayward's playing at a high level. Watt was big last week. This has to be the week that they take over. And as well as guys like Joey Porter Jr., Minkah Fitzpatrick, Patrick Queen, they have to be on their A game this one. If you let Jameis Winston and the Browns offense start getting into a rhythm, we've seen how dangerous they can be. They put up 32 points against one of the other really good defenses in the NFL, the Broncos, on Monday night.
And when I looked at Jameis's numbers after that Monday night game, because I was like, I know he got over 400 yards. It was like 450. It was 497. Yeah. Jameis Winston almost threw for 500 yards. And yes, it was the entirety of the Jameis Winston experience where you had 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and 500 yards, some stat line like that, where you look at it and you're like, okay, yeah, that's what you expect. But the defense has to capitalize on those turnovers and create and force those turnovers. We saw them do it against Joe Burrow a week ago, and that to me is going to be one of the most massive factors coming into this game is making Jameis Winston uncomfortable, forcing him to make quick and bad decisions with the football, and having your guys, the Joey Porter Jr.'s, the Dante Jackson, who's just coming off his, it's a career high 5 interceptions for him.
Yeah, I believe it is. I don't think he's ever gotten better than this.
Which is phenomenal. Having guys like TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith coming back into this, Nick Herbig, those guys forcing the strip sacks, fumbles, however they do it. That's going to be the biggest key for me in this week is how you disrupt the Browns and how you don't allow Jameis Winston and that offense to get comfortable and to get going. And I know in the game that was in Cleveland 2 weeks ago. It just really, to me, on both sides of the ball, felt like both teams couldn't get into a rhythm. It was just a weird game in general and had kind of that feel to it. But this is one where you're at home, you can set the tone, you're coming off this big win, you're the defense, you're going to want to show out, and hey, you get to have Renegade on your side, which you haven't had for 2 weeks. So
it has been a minute since that's happened. But to your point, this is a game where you can dictate the pace of things. And, I talked with Nick Faribault about this for our Wednesday episode. Mike Tomlin talked about this in his Tuesday press conference. The Steelers have to do a better job at containing the non-running quarterbacks from using their legs to extend plays. They've taken some bad angles, but this is the week where you can correct those things. And here's the thing is that we're not saying something that they cannot do. This isn't like going back and asking Mitch Trubisky to throw for 500 yards. This is saying, hey, you guys have done this against Lamar Jackson basically his entire career. Now we're asking you to be just as diligent against this guy. And to your point, Jenna, you do that against Joe Burrow, it gets frustrating over time because you're going to do everything right, and he's still going to hit a big play over your head, and you're like, man, the whole point of the war of attrition is to wear him down, is to keep being that, and then eventually you'll get him to make the big plays. Now, they did make the big plays against Joe Burrow this past Sunday with 3 turnovers. And one of those being a touchdown that the defense scored. But this week, I think it's not as tall of a wall to clear to get that done with Jameis Winston. And yes, he's dangerous. We've seen it. He can make elite throws. He can use his legs to buy time. But this is the week where you make it so that he's going to be in such a crunch that these aren't going to be as easy decisions. He's going to have to keep proving that he can hit you time and time again, and you're not giving up the big chunk plays. That's something that I brought up to Mike Tomlin. He said, hey, we're not changing our approach. We know what we're doing. And I think that's something that the Steelers have shown that, like, hey, when they're making mistakes, it's not that their plan is wrong, that there's certain adjustments that need to be made about how they're executing within those plans. And that's where I think the Steelers are looking for this week. And that's where they need to get big production from their guys from all levels of their defense, front, secondary, linebackers, everybody.
And going back to the first time these two teams met, I feel like after that Browns game, in that week leading into the Bengals game and having that mini bye, there was a lot of questions about where's the pass rush right now.
Yeah.
TJ Watt getting more involved. And it was, again, the weather also impacted it. Like, we can talk about the snow in the fact that as much as both teams are dealing with it, that does affect certain aspects of the game too, and just the way that things go and the way that things are played. But to me, there was so much talk about that. And then last week, it's one of those things where everyone's like, okay, wait, this is what they do. They don't have to have this stellar, crazy performance that we're so accustomed to, because I feel like that's something we've talked about, where this defense this year is not just TJ Watt himself making these big splash plays. It's TJ playing really well. It's Cam Hayward having more passes defensed this year than a lot of the cornerbacks in the NFL, which that stat is disgusting. I think I saw he has more than Sauce Gardner, and he's either tied or has one more than Jalen Ramsey. Like,
that's insane.
That's just a stupid statistic. But you have guys like TJ Watt, guys like Cam Hayward, Nick Herbig, Peyton Wilson, Dante Jackson, Deshaun Elliott. Like, you can go through the list of pretty much the entirety of these starters on defense, and a lot of those guys have forced a big play, made a big game-changing play, caused a turnover. That's what this defense is doing. So if there are games like 2 games ago against the Browns where the pass rush isn't going, just we need more from the other parts and pieces of the defense. And the Steelers just also, too, have to sustain drives on offense. We'll talk more about that. But that is something that, like, the defense needs to step up, but they have to continue to play complementary football, because that's what I feel was missing 2 weeks ago in that Browns loss.
Agree. They certainly need to. One thing the defense can do, and did do more against the Bengals, is move TJ Watt around to make it hard for the Browns to anticipate where they're going to go. Now, say what you want about the Browns and how bad of a team they've been. Kevin Stefanski is a good coach, and he's a good offensive-minded coach. And he's going to be the one concocting the plan to say, hey, wherever Watt lines up, we're going to put an extra running back and an extra tight end there. Even if they don't block him, they're just going to get in his way just long enough to give Jameis time to throw. So this is what the Steelers have to do. They have to use him to move him around. And again, it doesn't mean all game long, move him every single play. It just means times just make it a guessing game. Force the Browns to have to be like, 9-0's over here, 9-0's over there. And they did that just enough against the Bengals, and it got him more one-on-ones. He had 2 sacks, a forced fumble that was at a key part of the game. You do that this week, you're also going to be trusting that Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, Preston Smith, Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, those guys, they're going to get home on their one-on-ones, because it's not just TJ Watt that they're confusing them about. Now everyone has to adjust for crap. On this play, I was prepared to block Benton, but Highsmith's coming this way. Or I was prepared to plot Watt, but now Hayward's coming this way. And it forces thinking at a faster pace that leads to more mistakes, which then if the offensive line's making mistakes, it gives a chance for Jameis Winston maybe to make more mistakes. And if Jameis Winston is making more mistakes, that's where your turnovers start to come from.
Yep, I couldn't agree more with that. And do it again. It's just going to be, can they force Jameis Winston into making a decision he doesn't entirely want to make? And we've seen I feel like this game was his most recent game against the Broncos was kind of that, again, the full Jameis Winston experience, but that was the first time I feel like we've seen it in its entirety. For the majority of the time that he's been in there, he has made solid decisions with an interception or two thrown in. That was one of the ones where it was just, that game was, you look at it and you're like, oh, okay, he's going to do the good, the bad, and everything in between. But a lot of the parts of what was plaguing him in his game when I think he was with Tampa, we've seen him clean a lot of parts of that game up. And that was a big part of his transformation, quote unquote, when he was in New Orleans with the Saints and with Sean Payton. So you just have to get him out of what he wants to do, make him make a decision he's not entirely sure about in a split second, and then capitalize when those whatever takeaway in any way, shape, or form happens. You have to capitalize on them if you're the Steelers.
Absolutely. We'll get more into that in a bit, but first we got to do our Week 14 NFL picks. Those come up next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Jenna Harner. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I'll remind you this show is also brought to you by Omaha Steaks. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off gourmet gifts site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages starting at $89.99. From legendary steaks to mouthwatering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code NFL and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off at OMAHA Steaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. Minimum purchase may apply. We're also brought to you by Skylight Frames. Missing someone this holiday season and want them to be part of your festivities from afar? Do your loved ones a favor from far away and give them the gift of the Skylight digital picture frame. When you get the Skylight digital picture frame, the most personal and thoughtful gift is it makes it easy for everyone to be able to personalize their holiday season. This is the perfect gift for you because it's a touchscreen digital photo frame where your whole family will be able to enjoy it. You can upload thousands of photos from your phone and watch them appear in just seconds. Setup takes them less than 60 seconds. Invite friends and family to easily share photos via the free Skylight mobile app or email. No account or subscription required. It only takes a tap on your phone to send new photos to a frame all the way across the country. It's the fastest, easiest way to keep loved ones in the loop. They'll feel so much more connected to you. And now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, get $20 off your first purchase of a Skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NFL. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/NFL. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/NFL. That's $20 off at skylightframe.com/NFL. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Jenna Harner, Channel 11 WPXI. Jenna, it's time to do our picks. And as always, we do an update of the standings. And your boy tied it back up this week. Let's go. We out here.
Right there. We're right there.
We're both at 135 correct picks on the season, under double digits of the leader of our group. Shout out Sack Attack. They still hold on to first place. They're ahead of us by 8 correct picks at 143. Shout out to the whole 394 people participating in the Locked On Steelers Pick'em group on ESPN.com, which you can join for free at any point in time to play along with us as the season rolls on. But let's get to our picks this week. Less picks as there are bye weeks this week back on the table. We'll skip Thursday night football since that'll happen by the time that you guys have seen the show. We're going to go right to Raiders at Buccaneers. Buccaneers are 6.5-point favorites. All these odds, ends, and lines are given to you by FanDuel.com. I'm taking Bucks, not thinking much about it. Jenna, are you agreeing?
Yeah, this is one of the ones. There's already looking at these games, and I'm going to be completely honest. I am picking right now in the moment with you, just as my first glance at the game. So I'm going with the Bucks. They just have a lot more going for them. Baker seems to be okay. I think it was a sore leg, and they're seeing how it goes throughout the week, but they expect him to be in. Double check the practice reports. Don't listen to me entirely, but yeah, I like the Bucks.
We'll move right along. AFC South game here. Titans host the Jaguars. Titans are 3.5-point favorites after that ugly injury that Trevor Lawrence took last week. I'm going to take the Titans, but I do not like that I am.
I don't like this game at all, and I'm sorry to anybody that's forced to watch this football game if you're a fan of either of these teams. Yeah, I'm going the Titans. They've had some wins this season where you're like, okay, this team has some stuff. Yeah, the Jags are in total disarray.
The Eagles are 12.5-point home favorites over the Panthers. That's got to be the largest spread this week. I'll take the Eagles, and I'll also take the points. The Eagles are playing really good football. The Panthers have been playing better, but still not enough.
Yeah, to me, the Eagles are one of the best teams, and I think a lot of people saw that in their win over the Ravens. A lot of people picked the Ravens in that one, and I wanted to say why. But yeah, I like Philly, what they've done. They're just kind of on a tear, and Saquon's chasing that single-season rushing yard record, and I think he can put a big dent in that this week.
He certainly could. Vikings host the Falcons. Vikings 5.5-point home favorites. I'm impressed by their win last week, Jenna. I wasn't sure if they'd get it done against the Cardinals. I'm picking them this week.
Yeah, me too. The Falcons there are more questions than answers, I think, right now with Atlanta, unfortunately. And I think the Vikings are rolling. They're going to set up a end of the season showdown for top of the division, potentially with the Lions. I like Minnesota. I like what they're doing. They've had some shaky games, and I think they still found ways to win. So I like Minnesota here.
Jets at Dolphins. Dolphins 6.5-point favorite. They look like they found their mojo. I'll take them over the disjointed Jets.
Yeah, I did love what I saw from Miami on Thanksgiving, but it's one of those, hey, they're showing some signs of life, and then they're going to meet a really solid opponent. That's not the case this week. I think they beat the Jets in a division game and beat them pretty handily.
Giants host the Saints, but the Saints are the 4.5-point favorites here. I'm going with New Orleans. Man, the Giants are really going through it this year, Jenna.
The Giants are going through it, and at this point, tank for the number one pick. Give me the number one pick. Yeah, I'm going with New Orleans here. No further explanation needed. It's the Giants.
I tell you what, if they get the number one pick, we're doing a mock draft with you every week of the year until the draft after the season's over.
I'm so down.
The Seahawks at the Cardinals. Cardinals 2.5-point favorites. This is a really tough game to pick. These are two close competition teams. I'm going with the Seahawks off this, but man, this could go either way.
I don't love this one at all because both of these teams are kind of fighting back and forth. I'm going to go with Arizona just because I think Seattle has been on the right side of squeaking out some victories, and I think Arizona has been on the flip side of losing some really close games. So I think Arizona is going to kind of find this level a little bit. I like the Cards here, but truly both of these teams could win. And both of these teams have kind of surprised me under the radar in just ways that they're winning where you look at them and you're like, all right, that's not a terrible team.
I agree. Bears at Niners. Niners 3.5-point home favorites here. Jenna, I might sound crazy. I'm taking the Bears. I'm sorry. Wait, you're taking the Bears too?
I think I'm going to take the Bears in this one.
So my logic, McCaffrey's out for the year. The Niners are getting dusted left and right. Their morale is going to be down. Give me Chicago, who's just hungry, and they're not disappointed. They're just like, we got something to prove every single week. I think that they have a big game against the Niners.
I think so too. New interim head coach, new play caller. I like what the possibility of this game brings, and also like the potential for what we might see. There's always that kind of like spark, the catalyst of, hey, they have a new team, and or hey, they have a new leader, and this team kind of has a new fresh start and wants to play well for those guys. And I think there's a lot of always too, when you see teams that have that fire a coach, there's a lot of players take things very personally in that way and say, hey, we want to go out and get the win to prove that, we can do this. I like the Bears. Yeah, I like the Bears. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I like the Bears here.
I'm right with you. I can't believe I'm saying it either. Bills at Rams. Bills are 4.5 point road favorites. I'm taking the Bills pretty easily here. I'm surprised the spread is this low.
Yeah, it does not feel that way. And maybe it's just because it's like the East Coast team going west and da-da-da. But the Bills are the best team in the NFL right now, in my opinion.
Agree.
I think they're going to keep on rolling. Josh Allen continues to cement his MVP case and just finds new ways to throw, pass, catch, all of the above touchdowns in every stupid, crazy way.
He is insane. Yeah. Chargers at Chiefs. The Chiefs are 3.5 point home favorites. Jenna, this is Sunday Night Football. I know you said you don't ever pick against Mahomes, but I'm doing it. I'm picking the upset. The Chargers going in to Arrowhead. They're gonna listen. The Chiefs have been eking out team after team after team a little bit. The Chargers play the kind of ball the Chiefs want to play. They're both defensive-minded now. They have good quarterbacks. I think it's going to come down to a last-second play. It's just this time it doesn't go the Chiefs' way, and the Chargers find a way to win.
I still cannot believe the way that Kansas City won the Black Friday game. Yeah. Air quotes for our just listeners, not viewers there, surrounding the word "one." I kind of like the Chargers here too. I think they're playing really well. They've come on as of late. The defense showed up in a massive way. I like them in this game. It is gonna come down to the end, and I think that I could go back and forth, but I'm going the Chargers here. I kind of like LA.
That's it. I think it's funny. The two upsets, I was like, oh, Jenna's never going to see this coming. Nope, she's right. She's right in lockstep with me there. All right, our last pick here is Monday Night Football. Bengals at Cowboys. Bengals are 5.5 point road favorites here. Give me the Bengals. The Cowboys are just bad.
Yeah, Cowboys are not a great football team in any way, and the Bengals can score, points, and their defense gives up a lot. But when you have Cooper Rush as your quarterback, I think the Bengals are going to be all right. So I like Cincinnati in this one.
Absolutely. We'll be back with our final look at how the Steelers need to beat the Browns this weekend next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Jenna Harner, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you that this show is also brought to you by Ice Shaker. I know you're like me and your holiday shopping list is, let's just say, far from complete. Well, if that's the case, I've got the perfect gift for the passionate sports fans in your life. Perhaps you've heard of Ice Shaker. Ice Shaker is now officially licensed with the NFL, NHL, NBA, NCAA, and MLB, and will make the ideal gift. Created by and used by the Gronkowski brothers, Ice Shakers has sold over 1 million bottles. They have changed the game with workout bottles, and this is the gift you've been looking for. Go to iceshaker.com and use the code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout, and you'll save 25% off your order. It's kitchen-grade stainless steel bottles that won't absorb odor like plastic bottles do. Plus, padded to twist in agitators that break up powders, but is somehow silent when you shake it instead of all the annoying ball sounds when you shake your water bottle. That's what Ice Shaker brings to the table. Plus, all of them are customizable. You can send us your logo or check out their custom shop to customize your favorite bottle. Turnaround time on custom bottle is just 3 to 5 business days. Order your team branded bottles today at iceshaker.com and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for 25% off your order. Ice Shakers, show your support for your teams with your best branded workout bottles on the market. Ice Shakers. We're also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel Sportsbook is the number one sportsbook in America. You've heard us talk about FanDuel all week long, America's number one sportsbook. The Steelers' odds, at least at this point in the week, again, this is early in the week, are 6.5 point favorites at home against the Browns for their 1 p.m. kickoff in their revenge game. The Steelers' money line is at minus 295. Browns is at plus 240, but the over-under has been moved up from 41.5 to 43.5. Will it move up more throughout the week? Be sure to check FanDuel.com for those updated numbers on the app. But the app is amazing. It's easy. You log in. You can bet on anything from NFL to NBA to NHL, MLB, college sports, so much more. All the action, all the craziness can be bet on FanDuel Sportsbook today, the #1 sportsbook in America. And new customers can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first bet of $5 or more today. That's $150 in free bets to new customers if you just hit on your first bet of $5 or more. Only on FanDuel.com. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Back here in the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Jenna Harner of Channel 11 WPXI. Jenna, last time the Steelers met the Browns, Myles Garrett wrecked the game in the first half. Now, he was silenced in the second half. He had one tackle, and that was it. They were able to make some adjustments. And Mike Tomlin said, hey, it's about them making their adjustments on Myles Garrett. That's the key that they have to focus on. And the Steelers historically have done well against Myles Garrett. They've contained him. They've beaten the Browns more often than not. They've been that team. But this is the week to prove it. Last week, the offensive line graded great across the board. They shut down Trey Hendrickson. They bullied the Bengals off the line, but that's what you're supposed to do in that game. Now, you have to show that you've grown from 2 weeks ago when you struggled to stop Myles Garrett in the first half, but did show look like they had a hit there. What are you looking for from this offense to be prepared to stop Myles Garrett?
I think it's going to come down to I'll go in a couple different directions. I think the rookies in Zach Frazier and Mason McCormick kind of getting their first looks at Myles Garrett 2 weeks ago is going to help them leaps and bounds tremendously going into this game, because they're like, okay, we have a little bit more of an idea now. You can see things on film as much as you want, but until it's happening in real time. That was, I think, Frazier's worst game of the season by far, and he has looked nothing but spectacular this season. So to say that it was his worst game is like a little blip. I think he allowed 4 pressures, which was the most he's given up in a game. I think the other games combined, he's given up 3 total or something to that level. But I think, to me, it's going to be taking what the defense gives them and building off of a little bit of what we saw in Cincinnati. We heard Najee Harris talk a ton about it after the game. We heard Russell Wilson mention it too. It wasn't any sort of secret recipe, secret sauce. It was just, hey, we saw this on film. We knew what they were going to do. And so when we knew the look that they were in, we were like, all right, we have the screen game. We have the little dink and dunk passes that you saw work so well with that run game from Najee, from Jaylen Warren, I think, or, just the way that they were moving the ball, not entirely run because there were some screen passes, but getting those guys involved was a big factor. So for me, it's going to be taking what the defense gives them and just being quick and making those quick decisions and not allowing Myles Garrett to burst through the line and take up time, have Russell Wilson hold the ball too long, and what we saw happen in the Browns game 2 weeks ago happen again. That's going to be, for me, what I'm going to be watching basically is just, hey, can they get the ball out quick? Can they make quick, smart decisions? And can they continue to establish the run more?
I agree. And part of it is kind of doing what they did last week against the Bengals. They need to counter what the Browns are trying to do with the best way to beat it. The Bengals, they wanted to stuff the run and guard the deep ball. And so they were pressing the run gaps, and they had 2 deep safeties. So what did you do? You spread them out, you check it down, you force their tacklers to have to tackle in space. They didn't do as well against the Steelers playmakers, and the Steelers got big yards in the game. If the Browns come out and they press you, you got to be able to protect yourself long enough for your guys to beat the press, and you got to trust your guys to win those plays. That's what it's going to come down to. I think the Steelers can do it this week, but the question is, will they? We give our picks now. Jenna, give us your how you see this game going, your big turning point in the game, and your final score prediction.
I see this game going a lot differently than the way it went in Cleveland a couple weeks ago. I think, again, it's going to be a little bit of a feeling out process, but I think the Steelers offense, if they hit a big play early on their first or second drive, they're going to build off of that. And we saw them do that against the Bengals, where they went blow for blow. It was, I have the play-by-play pulled up, but after the pick 6, it was touchdown Steelers, touchdown Bengals, touchdown Steelers, touchdown Bengals, touchdown Steelers. The Steelers can do it. They fixed and found ways around some of those red zone problems that were really plaguing them. And yes, I think the Browns defense is stronger than the Bengals defense. But I think if you can score and you can find ways that are working for your offense and for you to consistently move the ball and drive the ball down the field, and I keep going back to what Broderick Jones said leading into the Bengals game, where he said, we're making it into the red zone, with ease. It's now just finishing in the red zone. Like we're not having problems getting in there. It's just a matter of finishing it and finishing the job. And I think that was a big point of emphasis. I think that's going to continue. So I think the Steelers are going to hit a big play on one of their early drives. They're going to get a touchdown off of that drive, and they're going to kind of really hold on to a lead for the majority of it. I also think, I know the prediction last week about TJ Watt creating a strip sack, forced fumble, whatever you want to call it. That rang true. So I think this defense really gets after Jameis Winston. I think he is going to throw multiple interceptions in this game that I think the Steelers are really going to capitalize on. It might not be pick sixes in the way that we saw against against the Broncos, but it's going to be, hey, the Steelers defense makes a big interception, brings the ball in Browns territory, and the Steelers offense can really capitalize on it, whether it's a field goal or a touchdown. But I think the Steelers are going to pretty much remain ahead in this one and stay ahead. It's going to be 30-20 Steelers, and that 20 for the Browns is going to be kind of like a late game garbage time touchdown to try to pull within, but it's never going to feel that close. So yeah, that's my prediction for you.
My prediction is very similar. I think, like you, I think that the Steelers, they get into this, they might feel it out a little bit, but I think this offense starts to click in ways that they weren't clicking in the blizzard. And in fact, they started to click late. It just took them a minute to figure some things out. Yeah. I think they'll have figured things out in this game. They're coming into it with some confidence. It's not a short week. It's not Thursday night football where they have 3 days where coming off of a Ravens game. This is a game where I think that they're going to come in and they're going to be able to set a better tone. The defense will be better prepared for Jameis Winston and what he's trying to do. And I think that this game, the Browns will keep it close in the first half, but I think in the third quarter they break it open, and it's turnovers that does it. I think Minkah Fitzpatrick gets his first interception of the season this week. That's my bold prediction right there. He gets off the schneid. The Steelers win 33-17. In Pittsburgh, advancing to 10-3 on the season and putting them in prime position to maybe even clinch the division very soon. But Jenna Harner, thanks so much for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let me know if we can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Well, thank you for having me. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Jenna Harner 11, Instagram Jenna_Harner, and locally here in Pittsburgh or streaming on our app, WPXI app as well. So got a lot of just cool things coming ahead with Steelers coverage. So stay tuned.
Absolutely. She's Jenna Harner. I'm Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram and Blue Sky at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. Find me here every Monday through Friday on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. I'll be at the game on Sunday and then giving you all my post-game reactions right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.